Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year. So, on December 31st, I was sitting in a bar with some buddies, and my friend Jayme asked me a very good question. She wants to read a bit more in the year 2023, and that's actually on a lot of my friends' lists, and they come to me because I'm an avid reader, and they want to know what are some books that they can read, what are some good recommendations. And hey, look, I get it. People are busy. They're working full time, and with inflation being what it is, heck, you might actually have to work more than full time or get another job. I'm actually eyeing that prospect myself. Prices of everything are going up. And you only have so much time off, you know? And when you have that time off, what do you got to do? You got to do laundry, you got to do grocery shopping, maybe you have to run to the bank. And factor in that, some people also have children. So I get why a lot of Americans just can't read more books per year. Books, a lot of times, are very long and very hard to get through, and that's even for a seasoned avid reader such as myself. So I've compiled this list. I think it's about 70 books. I'm going to try to go through this list actually as fast as I can. And if you miss something I say, don't worry, because down in the description is going to be the names of all of these books I mentioned. These aren't in any particular type of order, and because this is all about basically reading for busy people, I am going to try to make this about as fast as I can. So, let's start off with four classics. Okay, the four canonical standalone Holmes novels. They are Study in Scarlet, The Sign of the Four, The Hound of the Baskervilles, and The Valley of Fear. Anybody can knock these out over the course of a weekend. So, Peter and Wendy, that's the J.M. Barrie novel. That's basically a novelization of the play. Fahrenheit 451, a dystopian novel. The Halloween Tree, two of these are by Ray Bradbury. Halloween Tree is definitely for a younger audience, but still fun. Here are four novels you can actually read in a month. Joseph Conrad, Heart of Darkness, I don't even think that qualifies as a book. I think it qualifies as a novella. The Red Badge of Courage, Civil War fiction. The Great Gatsby, Roaring Twenties, Gin and Jazz. To Kill a Mockingbird, one of the greatest books I read in 2022. The Werewolf of Grosse Pointe and Other Stories, Local Folklore, fun book. Okay, so here's some nonfiction reads if you like warfare. John Hersey, Hiroshima, about the dropping of the nuclear bomb. The Bridge at Remagen, that's about the bridge that was taken by the Allies and got them across the Rhine initially. Helmet for My Pillow, about island campaigning in the Pacific during World War II. And here's a book of Vietnam about the demolition of a bridge that helped a 1972 advance of the North Vietnamese Army. Alright, here we have three fiction books, all of them by S.E. Hinton, all of them great books that I've read. That was Then, This Is Now, sequel to The Outsiders, not really good, but all three are set in the same universe. The Outsiders, which was also a very good movie, that was Then, This Is Now, and Rumblefish. Alright, maybe you feel like High Seas Adventure. Okay, The Call of the Wild, it's a fiction book by Jack London about, being a pioneer up in the Canadian territories, prospecting for gold. Into the Wild by John Krakauer, about Christopher McCandless, who tried to survive in the Alaskan wilderness. He made it over 100 days, so that's admirable, but yes, he did die. And the classic, The Adventures of Robinson Crusoe. Okay, and here, High Seas Adventure, The Perfect Storm, about a crew that was caught in a nor'easter and was never seen again. Also about the Coast Guard trying to rescue people during that same storm. The book Kon-Tiki, about an archaeologist who wanted to prove it was possible that there could be travel between the remote islands a couple thousands away from the South American continent, and he actually proved that it was possible. These are some fiction books. One's a sci-fi, the other's a horror. The Boys from Brazil, not much I can tell you about that. The Wolfen, that's Werewolves versus NYPD, and actually it's a very believable book. So these are, three fiction books and one nonfiction. So you got Skipping Christmas, fun lighthearted book by John Grishom, meant to be funny. You've got Flint, that's your classic action western by somebody who did pioneer stories the best. Animal Farm by George Orwell, allegorical. And also check out his nonfiction, Down and Out in Paris and London. Maybe you want to read about some law and order type stuff. Armed and Dangerous by William Queen. This is about him trying to apprehend a fugitive, a wild one, William Queen, ATF agent. The Elusive Purple Gang. I've actually been in contact with this author. He is a former local, lived right here in Ypsilanti at one point. The Purple Gang was a 1920s gang that was that served basically to funnel whiskey from Canada into the United States. All right, we got 4 books right here, 2 of them great works of feminist literature. So, you have The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie, that by Muriel Sparks, and this is about the competition, social competition that happens between girls at an elite academy. And Miss Jean Brodie herself is kind of a proto sex positive, gender critical feminist before that was really a thing. And you have here essays by Virginia Woolf, A Room of One's Own. You got 2 great fictional works here, Cannery Row and The Pearl, both easy reads by John Steinbeck. Pearl is kind of his take on an older tale. Cannery Row is him talking about the Salinas area of California that I think he grew up in, and sort of how it's just this rough tumble place. Okay, so we got some good books right here. Both of them are by, let me see here, Robert Louis Stevenson. He wrote Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Treasure Island. Treasure Island's meant for kids, but hey, I read it when I was an adult and still pretty good. The Art of War by Sun Tzu. That's actually just a good tacticianing book and stuff such as that. I have on here The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Now, how many of you have actually read it versus just know about it through like movies or, animated movies or something like that? So here we got 3 very serious pieces. We've got Night by Elie Wiesel, The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank, Man's Search for Meaning. All these people who wrote these books were in concentration camps. Anne Frank passed away in one at a very young age. I forget it exactly. I believe she was still a teenager. Elie Wiesel talks about how that has an effect on family. And Viktor Frankl wants to know why it is that some people still are able to be optimists even in that situation. So Night, The Diary of a Young Girl, and Man's Search for Meaning. These are very heavy philosophical pieces, but nevertheless, you can get through them quickly. So, The Alchemist and The Old Man in the Sea, both are highly allegorical works, very different, but I enjoyed both, and they were actually the first 2 out of 3 books I read, I think in 2020 maybe? Something like that? Or no, 2021, I believe. Kurt Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse-Five. That's an absurdist military fiction book. And then you have Kurt Vonnegut, A Man Without a Country. This is some essays and speeches he gave compiled. Very interesting thoughts and everything like that. A lot of people want to know particularly what kind of a book Slaughterhouse-Five is. Hey man, just read the book. Check it out from your local library and get to reading it. Stop wondering about the mystery that is Vonnegut and engage. Local author, Mitch Albom. So we got 3 books here by him. Both deal with tragedy and dying. Finding Chica. Yeah, that's about a kid who comes down with a fatal disease. Have a Little Faith is him going back to his hometown and sort of reconciling with a local rabbi who is on his way out, should we say. Tuesdays with Morrie is about a college professor of his that unfortunately comes down with a fatal disease. What's called Lou Gehrig's disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. Here are 3 philosophical works, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, On Violence by Hannah Arendt, which is basically how do countries go about getting legitimacy and how countries that are violent are actually losing legitimacy. The Myth of Sisyphus, that's Albert Camus trying to tackle suicide. Other 2 heavy works, Mortality by Christopher Hitchens, Darkness Visible, a memoir of dealing with depression. The Christmas Box, light-hearted, sort of viral vanity press read. Okay, so here I decide this is clearly a horror slide. It's got Stephen King's Blockade Billy, Cycle of the Werewolf. Both very short works by King. Great place to just dip your toes into him if you want. And you got Autumn Crow. That's kind of a fun nostalgia grab for those people who liked Fear Street by R.L. Stine. And then there's Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Sometimes you want to get to the source of ideas, and for that you got the Communist Manifesto and the Book of the Law. Here are 2 heavy reads, not really connected by a theme. A Winter Haunting by Dan Simmons, psychological horror. And The Prince, a treatise on how to do power politicking to the Borgia family, who did it the best. Okay, here we got 2 nonfiction and 1 fiction. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, a nice fun read, a lot of comedy here. Longitude, that's a great read about creating the first accurate timepiece at sea. And In the Heart of the Sea, about the tragedy of the whale ship Essex. And that was what inspired Moby Dick. So we got 2 sci-fi books right here, and both of them are by ladies. One of them a lady of color. So The Lave of Heaven by Ursula K. Le Guin. This tackles if somebody had a superpower, how would they get rid of it? That's kind of an interesting perspective to have. I gotta say, I thought Ursula K. Le Guin was overrated till I read Ursula K. Le Guin, and she is quite good. And then Binti. This is about somebody picked to leave their planet to go pursue an education, and how what makes them different and stand out is what saves the day. So we got 3 books here: The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, and Up from Slavery. So all 3 of these books deal with slavery. The one in the middle, Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, it does not spare you detail on what slaves went through, how they were tortured, how some of them were executed, very violent, and also gets into the side of, women in the South and how, they treated other female slaves. You'd think maybe women would be a bit more compassionate or whatnot, but no. Alright, so we got Agatha Christie and Then There Were None. This is kind of the classic, invited to a remote location, multiple guests, and they disappear one by one. It started this, and pretty much every television series that has over 3 seasons has some episode dedicated to it. The Haunting of Hill House, classic by Shirley Jackson. And The Last Duel. This is about the last judicial duel that took place and was sanctioned in France. I don't know why I chose to end with that one, but it was actually a pretty good one, and I'm going to say the movie also was pretty good. These are the reads. Thank you very much.